Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. Tell you what, this is pretty exciting because we're at Major League Fishing at the REDCREST Championship. But, you know, when it comes to fishing, everyone wants to catch fish, but there's another side of that, isn't there, Steve? So tell them who you are and what you do for Major League Fishing.
Yeah, Brad, thank you so much. My name's Stephen Bardin, fisheries biologist and the director of the Major League Fishing Fisheries Management Division.
Yep, but so that's kind of a big title, but you have a lot that you do. What do you think, if you had to put it in the things that you do in the categories, how would you label that? You have habitat, you have everything, don't you?
Exactly. That's so simple for us. We actually did quite a bit of research before we announced our Fisheries Management Division. And
right.
We really focused on 4 areas, Brad.
Okay.
We've got fish care.
All right.
Major League Fishing inherently has great fish care. We got fish care. That's one of our pillars. We've got education. So I do a lot of speaking to anglers directly. I do a lot of educating youth, and then we write a lot of articles for the website. Then we have our research department, where I work collecting the data every single day from our competition and providing that to the state agencies, and also work with universities and state agencies to do research projects at our events. And then finally we have fisheries enhancement. And fisheries enhancement's that fun part where we get our hands dirty, we build habitat, do vegetation, planting. We get to work in the field and actually do fisheries work.
I think I saw something where you guys were doing some fisheries where you were talking about fish care.
Okay.
And you were really going in depth on how you're going to improve that and get the fish. I thought they said grow the fish bigger, but
yeah.
Were you talking about that?
No, exactly. This is exactly what we do, Brad. So we have what we call our Major League Fishing Lunker DNA Initiative.
Oh!
Yeah, you nailed that one.
I like that.
So what we do is every time one of our anglers on the Bass Pro Tour or anywhere where one of our live release boats is, when they catch a fish over 7 pounds, we do what's called a mouth swab. So we take this little swab, we uncap it, we rub it on the tongue of the fish, and we close it up. And then we send that to Auburn University. And what they do is they do a DNA analysis on that fish. And so what we get back is Florida genetic versus northern genetic, because those are 2 different species. We get that, and then we also get the percentage that is crossed, as in, is this a first-generation cross, or has this happened throughout its lineage?
Really?
So, Brad, what that is allowing us to do is look at where do Florida genetics either naturally or currently occur in the United States geographically. So we can find a northern boundary on a pure Florida. Where can it occur? And then we can also see, not on a population level, but on these superior size fish, over 7 pound, the big fish.
Wow.
What genetic grows to that superior size in those fisheries? So this is first of its kind in the industry, a league that's really focused on, let's figure out the science behind how to grow these bigger fish and then stock those fish that select genetic later.
Right. And so how many fish, this is April, do you know how many fish that you've had come in over 7 pounds?
Oh, that's an easy one. So we have the Bass Pro Tour, one event so far. Well, they come to my house, right? Like, I get the samples.
Okay.
So we've had the Bass Pro Tour, but we've had 2 Tackle Warehouse Invitationals, and we've had about 4 other events where our release boats were. And we have about 49 samples exactly right now.
49. Over 7 pounds.
Over 7 pounds. And those fisheries, we have some from Texas. We have a 13-pound fish from Louisiana.
Wow.
We've got some from Florida, of course. And then we'll start as our northern swing starts. We'll get the really important ones. The important ones come from Missouri, Tennessee, maybe even Kentucky. Like those areas that have a little bit more question on what Florida genetic might be in the fisheries at this time.
So is that just a largemouth thing? It's not a smallmouth thing?
That's a largemouth thing. Now, technically there are 3 different species of smallmouth if we want to get way into the weeds genetically. But the northern smallmouth is the one that's most prominent, and that's the one that grows to the advanced size. So we know the genetics of a smallmouth. If it's 6 or 7 pounds, we know that.
Right. I gotcha. So, you know, I always am wondering that you guys go out there and you get all the samples, you learn like where all the fish come from. Do you guys you always pound the big fish? Do you always catch the big fish?
No.
And why don't you fish tournaments if you know all these answers?
I will explain that. That is such a good question. So I grew up just like you did, where I'm fishing and I'm at a pond or I'm at a lake and I'm thinking, oh, I've got to catch one more, because if I catch one more, this will be my 5-fish bag, and then I'm in my head pretending I'm at the Classic, and I put myself in that situation. But as I got a little bit older, I realized I wasn't driven by competition in fishing.
Right.
I want to figure them out.
Right.
I want to figure out exactly what the pattern is. I want to catch as many as possible. But I don't want to beat you doing it. I want me and Brad to have a good time together doing it.
Right.
So instead, what I learned that I was really intrigued in is business. I like competition in business.
Right.
So to me, getting a biology degree, I'm a private biologist. I don't work for the state.
Oh.
So I compete in business every day,
growing
big fish. And that's what really intrigues me. It's so much fun whenever I can take a fishery and maybe produce a 15-pound fish in it.
Right.
And then everything that happened to have that happen. And now maybe a 10-year-old kid is the person that caught it. That's really cool to me.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's your background going
That's my background. And with Major League Fishing, the Fisheries Management Division, we want every angler, especially the youth anglers, to have the opportunities that maybe we had in the past, those excellent days, those 100-fish days, or those big fish opportunities. We want that to sustain. And across the country, our fisheries are aging. Our reservoirs are aging.
Right.
The height of reservoir construction was in the 60s and 70s. At this time, 2023, we build reservoirs at a slower rate than we did in 1890.
Wow.
Now, all those reservoirs, they age in a predictable way.
Right.
They accumulate silt. The habitat deteriorates. And so what that has left us with is fisheries that really need improvement. And so I think the peak of fisheries management is right now. It's when we have the most difficult problems. We're not building new lakes. We have to manage our lakes. And so it intrigues me. It's the competition that drives me. And that's what we do at the Fisheries Management Division. We make the lakes a little better.
Well, let's talk a little bit about fish, how they live, where they live. Let's just look at the spring. This is the spring. And so if you were fishing in, say, in the central part of the states, and you were fishing, where would you head off to if you got in a boat and you were in, say, let's say Table Rock Lake? That's a pretty common lake,
well,
or Kentucky
Lake Norman?
Lake.
We're here.
Okay, Norman.
Yeah,
perfect.
Norman.
All right.
We're seeing it happen live.
Right.
If I was largemouth fishing right now, Norman's, I guess I shouldn't have picked Norman. It's
See,
such
it
a unique case.
smallmouth. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Norman has largemouth and it has Alabama bass.
Right.
So Alabama bass live in a main channel.
Uh-huh.
They don't live in super shallow water. They live in main channel.
Right.
So if I was fishing Lake Norman right now, I'm going to head shallow because I want an opportunity to catch those bigger largemouth, right?
Right.
And I know that's where they're going to be. And they're going to set up for spawn. Alabama bass spawn slightly before largemouth.
Right.
So they're hitting their beds right now. So I'm going to head to tributaries. I'm going to head to those skinnier waters. Lake Norman's about 5 foot low, so it's easy to see them right now too. But it's a spawning tournament.
Uh-huh.
If I was on Table Rock, we talk about it's probably another month behind this.
Right.
It's unfair because I have all the MLF data, so I know exactly where the smallmouth are right now. But I would look for a contour line. Let's say 15 foot, 10 foot, and I would identify that contour line, main lake, main points leading into those channels. And if I could get a bite on a specific contour line, that's what I'm going to focus on.
Right.
Contour this time of year, because they're moving up vertically and they're picking their staging to move into spawn.
So what do you think major differences are between a largemouth and a smallmouth?
So largemouth are visual predators.
Okay.
Number one, that's how they're going to hunt. They're going to hunt visually.
All right.
We consider them to be ambush predators in the fact that they like to hide and wait to capture forage.
Right.
Where a smallmouth uses a lot more of sense of smell.
Really?
So they will identify a fish from a further way away. It's to see something, you have to have water clarity. To smell something, you just have to be in proximity and you have to have current bringing it to you. So smallmouth will travel a little bit further. Smallmouth will also orient themselves around a habitat, but not stuck next to it to ambush.
Uh-huh.
So they will swim further for their forage. Largemouth typically are in what's called the littoral zone. And the littoral zone is the part of the reservoir where sunlight penetrates to the bottom. And that's also the area that most typically grows grass or aquatic vegetation.
Right.
So I would look for largemouth around that aquatic vegetation, where smallmouth, they can be in the littoral zone. They tend to be, but they like a harder, rockier habitat. So they would avoid the inside of the vegetation, and if they were near vegetation, they'd be on the edge. So there's some habitat differences. There's a little bit of an aggression difference too. The largemouth is slightly more docile until it's going to ambush something. Where a smallmouth is very competitive. They live in schools more often, and so they'll compete against each other.
I got
So they will move to a bait just so that their neighbors can't get it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to shift gears. We're going to go to electronics and how electronics is changing. You know, it's probably changing the fisheries because of where the fish are located or where the anglers are located to catch the fish. So tell us your view on it. Give us your opinion on that.
Well, I mean, technology is advancing quickly, and in fisheries management, we're using it the same way anglers are.
There you go.
I have forward-facing sonar on my survey boat. I can see fish out ahead of me as I'm surveying a lake. We use electronics to map reservoirs and give us real-time data on aquatic vegetation, depth, and silt. So it's a really big benefit for us. But on the angling side, and what it's doing is it's allowing anglers to advance their skill of finding fish.
Okay.
It still takes, if you identify a fish, even if forward-facing sonar, you identify where a fish is, you still have to be accurate enough with your cast. You have to have that skill to be accurate with your cast to present the bait. You have to have the right bait selection to make that fish bite. And you also are now learning, I like to say, like when you fish with your grandpa and he said, you've got to be quiet, the fish can hear you. You're learning that is true because you can now see the fish and see that as you're getting closer, they're hearing the boat, they're swimming away.
Right.
And so I think forward-facing in the new technologies, they're fixing and helping with the learning curve for new anglers.
Right.
For us anglers that have been doing this for a long time, it's just solidifying things that we already knew.
Right. And in a way, it's when you talk about the fish population, it's kind of hard because the one tournament, they release them after they're caught. But let's talk about the invitationals and BFLs, even down to BFLs. Yeah. So how is fish management being taken care of? Okay. When people go, well, they got live scope and they're catching all the fish, and you're at an invitational, what's your response to a person that says that?
Yeah, we are. So whenever we do a 5-fish limit tournament with a weigh-in, the hard part is we're culling fish throughout the day, and we're selecting our biggest 5. Right. So we are taking an advanced size fish from that environment, and we're moving it to a weigh-in location. Right. As a tournament organization, we have a responsibility, and that responsibility is to take those advanced size fish and do everything possible to make sure that those fish are released back in that environment. So we have the live release boats. We have 5 of them at Major League Fishing that travel to all of our events. Those live release boat teams, I asked them whenever I got here, I said, how long have you been doing this? And the average response was 20 years. Wow. Yeah, so most of our guys,
they're good at it.
They're really good at it. They can fizz fish. They can, apply the right amount of salt, oxygen, things like that to recuperate fish. Right. So on the angler side, we need good live well care. You get the fish to our weigh-in, and we have a 97% live release. Wow. We initially had a 99%, and I did something that was kind of controversial. I said, at the bump board, the fish is alive, right? It can move. That's a live fish. That's how every league does it. I said, let's redefine that. Well, those fish are alive, but let's get them to the boat, and let's look at how do those fish, are they going to be released and thrive? So now instead of live release, I call it thrive release. Okay. Right? We have 97% thrive release. Those fish are fish that I know are going to go back into the system and thrive. Right. Now, as a general rule, most of our reservoirs in the United States are under-harvested whenever we talk about bass species. Okay. So we need some harvest. The tournament is not the place to do that because we're taking advanced-sized fish. We don't want to harvest advanced fish. We need to harvest smaller fish. So there is some education that has to occur on what types of fish need to be removed, because every reservoir has a carrying capacity, and as reservoirs age, that carrying capacity goes down. So the reservoirs that we have that are carrying the same number of fish, this fish can become more stunted or smaller at those small sizes. So we need to harvest more of those juvenile fish. We need to protect the big advanced-sized fish, and we need to do everything we can whenever we're at our events to do that. And I think we do a phenomenal job at it.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's just with experience. That's nothing that I can claim credit for. That's experience of the live release teams.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That takes us up to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures has a complete line of hard and soft baits. They catch all kinds of fish, including those big largemouth, over 7 pounds, that we've been talking about. Walleyes, crappie, they got everything you need to catch them. All you have to do is check them out at picolures.com. Steve, if they want to find out more about what you're doing, or if they want to get in contact with you, to talk about conservation or something, where would they go?
The best place is majorleaguefishing.com.
Okay.
If you go to the main page, you're going to see a blue Fisheries Management Division logo on the right side of the screen.
All right.
You
like on your
that,
shirt there.
just like this one
all
here.
Right.
You click that, and it's going to take you to all of our articles. And they're divided by pillars. So if you're really interested in the fish habitat, you can click that and see all of our projects. Or maybe you're interested in that fish care. You click that, and you can see our tips on there.
All right, sounds good. Well, like I always like to end the show, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.